Good morning, Andy Johnson here. I'm going to go over the Native American lesson plan for Special Ed 509. I'm going to do this very slowly because it can be kind of complicated. This is an example of scaffolding, meaning I've created some structure here to make it easier. If I just said write the lesson without giving you structure, that would be a little overwhelming. You will design a lesson plan related to Minnesota-based American Indians. Find a subject within one of the broad categories, and I've given you a bunch of them. You're going to create an online lesson and present this online lesson in small groups. So you're going to record it, create a link, and put that link in your discussion group. Now, I've given you some broad categories within the category. For example, oral traditions. I would find maybe one topic within it. Keep it simple. This is a 4 to 6 or 5 to 8, around that. I'm not getting real picky, but this is not a 30-minute lecture. You're teaching this subject to your group. What you include is just as important as what you don't include. You need to practice organizing, synthesizing, and teach a lesson just like a real teacher does. This is what teachers do. They don't just open up the teacher's manual. Often, you will have to get new information, synthesize it, and create a lesson that your students can understand. And teaching is not the same as just telling a bunch of stuff or dumping a bunch of stuff. So it is creating a a structured lesson. 4 to 6, 4 to 8, around that category. I'm not going to get too picky, but it should be long enough to teach us something, and it should be short enough that it doesn't bore us to tears. So your job is to teach us something new and interesting. All right? Within your group, you're in human groups, communicate via the discussion web. Each of you is going to select a different category and find a little chunk within that category to teach. As I said, what you don't include is just as important as what you do include. All right, I thinned out the lesson a little bit to make it easier. It starts with a learning goal or purpose. Students will learn about, just say, my topic is students will learn about creating shirts. The second part then, take that general purpose. This is for yourself. I want students to learn about. That's my goal. That's my purpose. Then put it into a behavioral objective. What behavior do you want to see at the end of the lesson? What will students in your small group be able to do as a result of learning? How do you know that learning will take place, that your students have learned? And I've given you some ideas. You can choose one of these or create your own. Students will demonstrate their learning by, they could have in your group identify 3 interesting and important ideas, create something based on your product, send it to you, scan it and send it to you. You could have a small quiz they could take and send it to you. You decide something and then assess the learning. Simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. Part 3 should be based on your objective. That's your plan for assessment. Your objective is one statement. Here you kind of build that. You describe how you're going to assess. Based on this, students will be given a quiz. They will have to get this. They'll send it back, and then I'll be able, all right? So should be based on your objective, anywhere from 2 to 6 sentences. People often come back and do the assessment after they have created the lesson, all right? After they have a sense of what's going in there. The opening is a hook, an introduction. 15 seconds to 1 minute. Again, I like to come back and do this at the end once I know what I'm teaching. The input modeling is the most important part. Here you're going to actually teach something. It should be in outline form. Use short, abbreviated sentences to hold the idea. I like outline just like I'm using right here so you can see the structure of the information. Now notice, as I'm teaching you this, I've thought this through. I'm not reading word for word from the screen, but I'm using the stuff on the screen to organize, all right? So I'm able to teach you this lesson about lesson planning without reading word for word, but it has organized my thinking so I'm not all over the place like I usually am. In your online lesson, include some sort of visual aid. I'm guessing most people use a PowerPoint of some sort. However, if you're just going to film yourself, you can just use posters. And again, you are teaching, however, to your group. You're telling students in your group something. You're teaching them something. Guided practice, we are going to ignore this for now. And again, I want to keep this simple. I realize this is the first time many of you will have planned a learning episode and actually taught it. So keep that in mind. The activity, some call it unguided practice or independent practice. Here, you do something with the information that you just taught. They create an art project or some open-ended activity, all right? This should be 95 to 100% success ratio. Students do something with the information that you've taught them. They practice learning. This can be used to assess, although it's not the same purpose. It's used to reinforce. For your online lesson, simply describe a neat activity you would do if you had students in your class. And again, if you're talking about how to make a shirt, maybe your activity would be for older kids to actually make a shirt or to design a shirt using some online art thing or something. I don't know. That's where teacher creativity and intelligence comes in. Teaching is this. You say a little bit, do a little bit. You're going to teach them about something, and to reinforce that learning so it's not rote, they have to do something with that information. Closing element sometimes just restates the salient ideas, a couple of big ideas for them to take. Not every lesson has that. I have a closing here that you'll see. And then the assessment. I want you to actually conduct your assessment so you know if students learned what you wanted them to learn. Did they meet your objective? Now your objective here, students will demonstrate their learning by blank. You're going to see if they actually met your objective. So that's where the assessment actually do it. And then keep in mind, you'll be doing a reflective analysis. You describe in your own lesson 2 things that worked and 2 things that didn't, or you could do differently. As well, when you review other people's lessons, you'll be helping them out, reflective analysis, telling them 2 things that really worked well and 2 things they might consider. All right? And I'll talk about reflective analysis a little bit later, but for right now, start on thinking about planning the lesson, teaching the lesson, recording that lesson. All right, this is my closing. Big ideas. Remember, in discussion group, decide on categories, no more than 1 person a category. Within that category, find a topic, a lesson, something that could be 4 to 8 minutes in duration. And again, long enough to actually teach us something, but not so long as to bore us. They should not go, never, ever, ever more than 10, but 8 would be the outside. You need to get some information and synthesize. Prepare the lesson. I've given you the headings. Use the headings I've got up here. All right? Create your lesson. And I've given you some free online programs so your lesson will look kind of like I'm doing right now, teaching to the camera with some stuff on the screen. Put the link in your discussion group along with your lesson plan for others to see. Put your lesson plan and your link in the Dropbox for me. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But right now you should be thinking about the lesson plan format, all right? Allow yourself to be mediocre here. This is the first attempt at planning and teaching for many of you, all right? This is a learning experience. I don't expect you to be perfect. I do expect you to put some effort and energy into this and make it as good as you can. But don't get so tense that it messes it up. This is a learning experience. All right, shoot me an email. If you want me to do a live online open mic session, I'll be happy to do that as well.